I'm so happy to see you. I do love to start on time, so we are actually starting at 7:30. And this is step 7. It's actually the last chapter of the last step of the book. And the book has been renamed. It's always been called Own Your Power, but I finally got the subtitle and the little blurb at the bottom. And what it's going to be called is Own Your Power. This is brand new, so increasing spiritual awareness day by day. And then the little blurb at the bottom will be 365 meditations to becoming your higher self. And that's after 7 entries. Wow. I got this title, I got that title, I got that title, I got that title, I got that title. So anyway, and Barb was one of the very first people that edited it for me. So I really, obviously have a special place in my heart for her too. As well as Aliana, who's doing the current editing for me. I'm just going to very, very quickly cover the first 6 steps, because this is step 7, which is called Connect to the Divine. And in reviewing the class, what I recognized is that the steps are really they form a very logical progression. And interestingly enough, as I was reading this, reviewing it for presentation, I realized that it's almost like a story of my life. So it's almost like a story of my personal unfoldment. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Because the first step is called The Outer Reflects the Inner. And how many of you have seen the movie Being John Malkovich? Fabulous movie. I totally recommend that you get it. It's 2 of you have seen it here, but it's one of the best movies out there, and it was made probably 95, 96. But it shows you that everything that you see outside of you is reflected from what you have inside of you. Like, I'll just give you one scene. He shows a dinner at a restaurant. There are 2 women, there are 2 men. Every single face is the head of John Malkovich. And it's absolutely perfect, because every single person that you interact with, every single incident that you have, effectively, somehow or other, reflects what's in here. And so the first 2 months of my book, all the essays, again, kind of substantiate that. The second section, this is March and April, is entitled Make Different Choices. And I'm always fascinated with Einstein's words about choice, because he's the one who said that you can't solve a problem with the same mindset that created it. And he also said that you can't say, let's see, I seem to have forgotten how that went.
You can't solve it
from the same level as it was created.
the same level of complexity at which it was created.
No, it's going after a different one.
Okay.
But anyway, it might come back. But the choices that you make, even if you stand back and decide you're not going to choose something, that is still a choice. It's a choice not to choose. And this was really struck home for me when I went to group activity that was called the Forum. And this was a throwback to, or I should say a progression from EST, which had the group was absolutely brutal in the sense that they started us at 8 o'clock in the morning, they let us out at 1 o'clock in the morning, and they sent us home with homework. And we had 10-minute breaks and a half-hour lunch and a half-hour dinner. And so most of the time it was group therapy that we were actually engaged in. And so it was very, very, it kind of like stood me on my ear because it was so demanding of us. So there's 2 months worth of making different choices, 2 months worth of essays on that. The third grouping is believe that it is possible. And so, and that, there's 45 days worth of essays on that. And the beauty that I find with believing that it is possible is I have witnessed people, because their desire to heal has been so intense that they have healed. And they've healed things that their doctors kind of like wrote them off, you know, like stage 4 cancer. So we, and it was always the fact that there was something within them that said, I'm not ready to check off this planet. I don't care who told me that I'm ready to go. I don't care what my body's condition is. In one case, this is one of my recent Reiki students, this is Wanda's journey too, but one of my recent Reiki students found out she was in stage 3 breast cancer when her baby was 3 months old. And so she said it was obvious that the tumor was there during the time that she was pregnant, but fortunately for her, they didn't find that, so she didn't have to face that kind of hysteria. But her words reflect exactly how I feel. I put it there. I can remove it. If my thoughts created it, my thoughts can uncreate it. So that's the beauty with the premise, believe that it is possible. And Leonard is one of the people that shows up here probably once a month, but he always sends us, he just sent us recently a little blurb on John of God, and his little statement was, this is one of my favorite John of God's interviews. So I clicked on it, and last night when I had maybe, for whatever reason, I had 2 hours to spare, and I usually never have 2 hours, so I thought, okay, I'm just going to not make myself rush through this. I'm just going to look at all the interviews, and who the little blurb was on was a gal called Gail Thackeray, and she has just done a documentary on John of God, and she has, in the process of doing the documentary, she also decided that the only thing I haven't experienced is a surgery. So instead of asking for a non-physical surgery like Bojana and I experienced when we went to Atlanta, Georgia together to see him, she opted for a physical surgery. And the physical surgery that she opted for was eye scraping. And so she said that while she was having this procedure done, there was a certain part of herself that was a skeptic about this. So she went from feeling nothing to all of a sudden feeling all of the pain involved with him, like having this razor-like knife scraping her eyeball. And so she's she's kind of like flipping out in her own mind and freaking out and saying, you said that there was going to be no pain with this, just on and on and on and on. And finally, the voice inside her head just said, well, I guess now you're ready for the spiritual anesthesia. It was her own doubt that caused that to happen. And it was absolutely amazing how once she kind of worked through and got to the point where she recognized that it was her own doubt, and so she came back to a place of believing that the spiritual anesthesia kicked in, and then she was very grateful that it kicked in, but she would have had to experience the pain had she been a believer all along, which she wasn't. The next section, and this is 45 days, is write it down. This is a section that I'm an absolute master at because I have always journaled from the time I was 21, and I can't tell you how much I encourage you to journal, because it's in the process of writing that you will be in contact with your angels and your guides, because eventually if you commit to journaling, eventually you're going to recognize that a voice is going to come through you, not from you. And that voice, in the process of coming through you, will give you messages from God. And you're going to be very, very, once you recognize that voice and know it as the voice of Spirit, it's like you stand in total confidence, and nothing can sway you, nothing can make you feel like this isn't right, or this isn't what